I mean, they're not one of my top 5 teams, but I like them better than Arizona. Yeah. I don't know. So who cares? I think baseball needs to have maybe about 10 more double headers and during the regular season and end like last week of September, so they finish the World Series like the next to last week in October. That's just my personal opinion.
I know people who are moving out.
That's all it would take.
Because they're moving out of Jackson Farms because
And for some of those East Coast, West Coast travels, it's probably better to have them double headers.
with Smith office. And even one of my friends, he lives next door to a Smith that lives in retirement.
Very witty in your response on the Dolphin game.
I've gotten a lot of feedback, positive feedback on
They didn't tell people that lived there that was happening.
I heard you. Oh, you heard me? Yeah.
Pretty much. You got again. If you again, I'll be back close.
We got about a minute. If you'll all double check, make sure your microphones are on. Should we push towards you?
Hey Jace, we got you on speakerphone. Okay.
And if you can keep him on mute, we'll all be
Hey,
better.
we need to put him on mute.
That's exactly what I just said. Great minds think alike. Speaking of mute. Everybody ready? Please stand for our invocation and pledge.
I gotta catch my breath, sorry. Please join me as we pray. Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight to do the bill. We also recognize that this is the month of November as we start the holiday season. And think about this month as the month of Thanksgiving. And may we come with grateful hearts and give thanks for the things that you have provided for us this past year, and also as we look forward to the next year. And may we remember those who are maybe less fortunate, that we would hold our things with open hands and give sharing and give generously to those who may be in need during this time, as an effect of what we are, as we are grateful people for what you have given to us. Thank you for this city. Thank you for this state, this county that we live in, and the things that are afforded to us by your grace. Go with us now, and may we do the business of the city with you on our mind, and do it respectfully and graciously. And we'll give you the praise and glory for what was done, and it's in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Drake, the roll, please.
I think those Marines did a lot better job than
Here.
Gary did.
Jace Stapp, Ward 2.
Here.
Carrie Rock, Ward 3.
Here.
Calvin Cooley, Ward 4.
Here.
Gary Fox, Ward 5.
Here.
Pat Red, Ward 6.
Here.
Thank you, Julia. Everybody is here. We appreciate Councilman Stepp joining us via phone, and everybody else for being here physically and in person. First order of business from October the 19th, and Council, you've had an opportunity to these minutes. Now would be the time to make any corrections to these minutes. I don't think Julia would make a mistake, but if she did, we need to tell her in front of everybody, and if there are none, a motion to approve would be in order.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Minutes are approved unanimously. We will start the evening off with T23-04. Mr. Menino, if you would please get us started.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a second reading of a proposed text amendment. I won't go back through all the details because we covered most of them during the first reading, but again, this is directly related to and this proposed text amendment allows for the development of data centers. It's actually a technology park zoning district. With that, since the first reading, we did incorporate the dark sky lighting standards into the proposed text amendment. It was not included as part of the first one, but we had it with us, and the applicant had proposed adding it in there. It has been incorporated into the documents that y'all were distributed before the meeting. With that, Planning Commission did recommend approval of the proposed text amendment, and those changes have been incorporated into your document.
So that dark star lighting requirement is part of the text amendment?
It is. It is part of the standards that anybody developing under that zoning district would have to comply with.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Menino at this time? Thank you, sir. Just as a point, again, there are two separate public hearings that are on the docket. Public hearing will be specific to a zoning request. These are two totally separate public hearings. And with both of these hearings, the applicant gets the opportunity to have 10 minutes to make a presentation, and then we will have people that have signed up to speak can come forward, and we'll have up to 5 minutes to speak. Any remaining time that the applicant has would finish the public hearing with rebuttal or other comment. Again, I would ask those of you that weren't here last time, first of all, everybody that's here, thank you for making the time to come here and be involved in local government. Those of you that were here last time, remember, it's my job to make sure that as much information gets to council before they take this up for consideration. So if you were here the last time and you heard a point made, council hearing it a second time, we're not bringing any new information to the table. So as best as we can, if we can try to give council new information and plow new ground, that's going to be helpful as they go through the process of making a decision this evening. So,
And Mayor, one other thing, if you do sort of get off topic during the text amendment and start talking about the actual rezoning for the data center, either myself or the mayor will remind you to stay on topic about the text amendment. You can talk all you want about the data center during that rezoning.
thank you, Mr. Lovell. At this time, and Mr. Lovell will be the keeper of the time, and so that being said, I will open up a hearing for T23-04 and ask the applicant to step forward. Even though you've signed up ahead of time to speak, when you come forward, if you would kindly give your name and your address so that our clerk can record that accurately in our records. Thank you.
Good evening, Brandon Bowen, 15 South Public Square, Cartersville. Luchins and John Morosco, who are assisting in this process. I'm not going to cover everything that I covered before. The only changes that are relevant since I was here before you last is we had submitted that dark sky ordinance, which is, we basically took the key parts out of a state and put it into the T district so that it would apply to any development in that T district. And also, and I can go into greater detail on this when we get to the rezoning, but I see on the wall, Mr. Hardigree's got the all of the permitted uses in that T district. You know, in drafting that, I tried to follow an existing city ordinance and also provide uses that would be appropriate for a technology district. But that said, Switch is willing to limit its use to data center and associated uses, and we can talk about that in greater detail when we get to the rezoning. So otherwise, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have if I can. If not, I can get them answered, and otherwise we'll reserve the rest of our time.
Any questions for Mr. Bowen at this time? Thank you, sir.
There you go.
We'll continue the public hearing for T23-04, and anybody wishing to step forward and speak for or against may do so at this time.
Good evening. My name is Scott Edwards. I'm at 451 Lucas Road Southwest. I've emailed all of you before a list of questions, and Mayor, thank you for your response tonight. That was very helpful. And the text of the zoning ordinance, The concerns I just want to raise real quickly, which are in that email, so I won't elaborate anymore. I'll be as concise as I can. I'd like to see more specificity as it relates to the text on two big issues. First being the broad uses listed for the buildings. It was concerning to me to aggregate all of those buildings as it relates to the zoning text. So I would like to see more of a narrow focus, and it sounds like we're well on our way for that as it relates to the data center project specifically. One of the big things that I would like to raise lastly is just the increase of the buffer around the perimeter of the property. Right now it's proposed as 100 feet, and I'm hoping that the board would consider 300-foot minimum around the perimeter, and there's some technicalities involved with that, which I've raised in the email, but I just wanted to voice that here tonight. And then, Mayor, lastly, you did address the concern I had about a backstop during the future development as far as council reviewing additional buildings in future phases. So I appreciate you addressing that.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. And public hearing for T2304. Anybody wishing to step forward may do so at this time.
Greg Blaylock, 426 Washington Boulevard, Dallas, Georgia. And I guess I have to ask for a little bit of, this can only address the text amendment?
Right now, we're talking only about the text amendment and the contents of that. We are not talking about we're not talking about Z23.
In regards to that, I'm hoping that all of the staff recommendations that were made will be adopted into this. And particularly on items 2 and 3 of the staff recommendations about the 100-foot buffer. After studying this, looking at the conditions, driving all around the property and looking at all of the residential conditions, I really do feel that the buffer needs to be greater than that along the residential areas, particularly the southern border that is adjacent to Senator's Ridge. We meet at the Paulding County line there, and we really do need a bigger buffer adjacent to that use. And I would just like to get that on the record. And then I do have some things I'd like to elaborate on in the second part.
Okay, thank you. We'll continue with T23-04 and ask anybody wishing to step forward, speak for or against, to do so at this time. Going once, going twice. I will close the public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for that. Does council have any questions for the applicant regarding the text amendment or from staff on the text amendment? Okay. That being the case, I will close the public hearing for T23-04 and turn it over to council for further discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Would that be approved as amended?
As amended.
There were 2 amendments to that? Or there was one? There was
The dark sky ordinance was really the only amendment to the text amendment.
Okay.
The noise was already included before it came to you.
Okay, that's why I was uncertain of that. Thank you to both of you for that. So, motion to approve as amended. And I have a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. 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 Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to Z23-03, and again, same kind of situation. Randy, if you'll get us started with that.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. This is the subsequent zoning case that went with the previous text amendment. Switch is looking to rezone approximately 1,900 acres to the new technology zoning district. With that, since the first reading, the only change that has occurred, you had a list of proposed conditions that came from the Planning Commission. Since that first reading, the applicant has noted that they are willing to add an additional condition limiting the principal uses to data center and accessory data center and storage type uses that go directly with the data center. So that is a change since the first reading. Everything else still applies. Planning Commission, again, did recommend approval with the group of conditions, and with that,
Had slight rewording on number 5, didn't change the intent of it, basically just says the property owner can do it. Property owner can make a submission to the mayor and council to do away with the residential development agreement on the property if this is approved.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Menino at this time? Thank you, Randy. I will open up a public hearing for Z 23-03. I'll call on the applicant to get us started on this public hearing.
Brandon Bowen, 15 South Public Square. Again, I'm going to repeat what I told you before. I would like to say that I've been really impressed with Switch. I have been involved with a lot of zoning cases, both for and against, over the years, and I have never seen a case where the developer meet the concerns of all of his neighbors, and that property has an awful lot of neighbors. So I think they really ought to be commended for that. The only thing that's new, as we discussed, is we hit at the last public hearing, we heard the question about whether Switch would be willing to consider just limiting this to a data center use, and Switch is happy to do that. So we did submit that condition, and along with the other conditions that are part of the recommended from Planning Commission and staff, they're all acceptable. And that said, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, I'll reserve the rest of our time.
Questions for Mr. Bowen at this time?
I do have one. Number 8, Paulding County that we decided to put on there, or is it just something you came up with yourself?
That actually was agreeable with, but if I'm wrong on that.
yeah, that is for planning and development of Paulding County.
Is that a standard? I mean, do you have counties ask for that too?
The only thing I would say to that, again, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, further phases will have to go through as a DRI, which will become a.
Additional phases could require additional DRI, we'd have to evaluate. But again, because it was all initially sent to Paulding County, that's why they requested that they see it, so they can make their folks aware.
And if additional phases do require a DRI is sent to all the adjoining government. So Paulding County would be one of whatever is being done on that property and would be able to comment in that process to the state, which eventually comes to us for our part of our review process.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just never thought before. I was just curious.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Bowen?
Can I just add a clarification? Maybe it's not a clarification, maybe it is an explanation. So, Mike, when we go back to the property map and we look at where they're developing, because I think that the concern, like, you know, we hear a lot of this concern about a greater buffer, a bigger buffer, and I know that you've agreed to a 100-foot buffer, and there's some, I guess, requests for a 300-foot buffer, right? But when I look at the map as where it's going to be, where it's going to be built, there is still a natural buffer, because currently, like right now, we're not crossing the creek. So there's a great buffer there, right? I mean, there's a natural buffer there. And so I think that you go further down, I think even down to the other part where we have the, you know, I guess it would be the south end of it, is right there. It's that buffer is still there with those residents. I mean, there's still, if you look at the plan, now that site plan can change, but still there is that buffer that looks like almost that, if you go, I'm sorry, if you go where they're going to develop the first development.
Oh yeah, phase 1 is.
Yeah, phase 1, like there on the south end of phase 1.
Thousands of feet, maybe
yeah,
miles.
there's several feet there. So, and I think that, and so when we get, you know, on the buffer issue, there's still quite a bit. We're not talking about, we're not building to the edge of the property line. and there's still a lot of natural buffer there. So, and I think do you look, I know there's not like I guess, could you forecast that would probably still be pretty close to that idea, that there would be still greater than 100-foot buffer? If you just thought, forecasted in your mind. Not
I
holding
may
you
have
to
to let
anything,
Mr. Luchins answer that.
Okay.
I think that the correct answer is that as far as the studies, the geographic or geological studies and all that on that southern end, they've not been accomplished yet. We designed that 100-foot buffer to be a 50-foot buffer and then an additional 50 feet if we're adjacent to residential areas where they might do work in it, but they'll have to go back and make it an opaque buffer. So if they are building close to that 100-foot buffer, then it's going to require more to make.
For me, the other thing would be, is that switches wants to have high security, right? So they don't want to build to the edge of the property line.
If you cannot build to the edge.
Right.
Can't be closer than 100.
Right, but they still want to maintain some security, and I think that would then, in my mind, would say, okay, you want a bigger buffer, even just maybe not by the rule, but probably even on your own, you would want a greater buffer if you are thinking of a high security area. Like, we're not going to go to that edge. Would that be a fair assumption to say that if we want to be a high security facility, then we're not going to build?
Yeah. So
we want a bigger buffer.
The reason this property is so attractive to Switch, and they want to use the property to create that, out of sight, out of mind mentality. So you're absolutely right.
Okay. So they may even increase that buffer because of that, the reason, because they want to be a high security, facility. So, okay, that's really all I have. I just want to make that clarification that that's, their goal is not to be seen. They do want to be, and greater buffers would give them that more of that security.
Right.
So, okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Bowen at this time? Thank you, sir. I'll open up public hearing or continue the public hearing for Z 23-03, and again, ask anybody wishing to step forward to speak for or against to do so at this time.
Greg Blaylock, 426 Washington Boulevard, Dallas, Georgia. I have a handout.
Yep. If you'll start with our clerk, make sure she gets a copy of that. Thank you.
Here it is on flash drive. You keep her better. In the previous meeting, one of the comments that I had was the fact that there was not a master plan. Did the mayor not get one? That there was not a master plan that developed the entire part of the property, and the emphasis is on phase one, which is over on the old Alabama side. My concern is on the Paulding side and the southern border of the property. So what I did, I took the criteria that is in the new zoning text and applied the setbacks and used the building footprint from phase one that they have. And I zoomed in on our neighborhood, very small here, but this is where we are on the southern part of the property, and blew that up to 1 inch equals 100 feet. That plan is 1 inch equals 600 feet. So with this, I try to illustrate our neighborhood here. This is only part of it. It's a 400 unit development. And then the 100-foot buffer that's been proposed. And then the phase one footprint of the 415,000 square foot building. So this is what we would be facing with the 100 buffer. As you can see, that this building is actually as long as this entire portion of our neighborhood. line. And this shows kind of the profile of our residences here in green, and then the first building for the switch, that's all in red. So you can see the scale of the building right now is proposed to be 50 feet high, but the zoning allows it to be up to 75 feet, which is the dotted line here. So you can see the scale of that, and then toward the end is a 200-foot tall cell tower, which is also allowed by the zone. So this tries to illustrate the relationship that we have here with only a 100-foot buffer. This first yard, in addition to the building, is all generators, and those generators are for emergency power in case they lose it, but so they don't run often in an emergency, but they are exercised every month. So all of these are going to be running from time to time, and then all of these up here are the mechanical units that cool it, which gives us the constant noise, which will be allowed to be 65 decibels at the property line, and that will run 24/7, 365. So this try to illustrate our concerns in the residents. At least 40 of our homes will adjoin the southern property line, and this is why we would request that the staff recommendations and clarifications of the 100-foot buffer be considered to be 250 feet, because looking at the topography that we have there, we're almost on the ridge. If we go 250 feet over, we actually go across the ridge and it starts to go down all the way to Old Alabama. If we had 250 feet, we might actually not see or not hear this project. And so that's what we would respectfully request, to amend at least that southern buffer to protect us and our homes.
Couple questions. Are there, and again, I have not been out to physically this part of the world. Are there no trees that buffer between this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's currently wooded.
Okay.
And we would certainly like to keep most of it that way. A project of this magnitude, where these huge buildings require extremely flat footprints, you're gonna have massive grading, because literally it's rolling hills. And so you're gonna have to have massive grading to flatten these areas, take the dirt off the hill, put it in the valley, and even it up. So it's a massive grading operation, and that means all the trees are gonna go.
And again, being unfamiliar with the topography of that area, I don't know, I haven't asked the applicant this. I mean, you make the assumption that that a data center would run lengthwise when it, again, topography may be that it runs longwise back away from the property.
Possibly, but that would be running against the topography.
Okay.
And normally, you're gonna take the length of the building and
Sure.
run it with the topography.
Yep.
To minimize.
Okay.
Anything else?
Questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Then we'll continue the public hearing, Z23-03, and again, ask anybody wishing to step forward, speak forward.
Lori Blaylock, 426 Washington Boulevard. I have the second portion of this. I don't know if any of you have been to Douglasville to actually see the Switch Data Center.
I have, yes.
Okay, so here's before and after shots. This is the site in Douglasville. This is the site after it's completed in Douglasville. And you can see by the size of these buildings that there's not a lot of room left. Even if you have the buffer around it, you have roads around these, you have rock fills around these. So even though we might have 50 feet of trees, hardwood trees and evergreens, you're still gonna see a massive amount of this building from all of our backyards. So I just wanted to show you this, so you can have an idea of scale and to answer your question. I talked to our commissioner in Paulding County, and he suggested that one of the reasons he added that to the planning recommendations was because there's no master plan. We don't know where these buildings are going to be located in relationship to us. And he suggested that we bring this point to you because you're asking us to take a leap of faith of what's gonna be built there in 10 years, in 20 years. What's that gonna do to our property values? Some of us are not gonna be able to move in 20 years when we're 80 years old. So we'd like to have some assurances now that the buffers be increased, that there's some protections for us in the future, since we have no way of planning for it now. Any questions?
Thank you.
Leave this right here?
We've got a copy of it, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Blaylock? Okay. We'll continue with Z 23-03. Anybody wish to step forward may do so. Everybody good? You welcome to, but you have, you have to, I'm sorry, you have to, this is part of the process of stuff we have to do, so, but you're fine, nobody's gonna yell at you or be.
Marlene Wood, 101 Columbus Court.
Okay.
You said you haven't come out to see where we live in this part of the area. Come out and see. That would be appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, anyone else wishing to make comment, now's the time to do it.
Stephen Wood, 101 Columbus Court in Dallas. I don't have a fancy little flashcard or anything. It's just one of those things that popped up. We just have moved into that area. And I'm just want to put another hat in the ring. Please increase the buffer on the southern end of it, because like I said, phase 1 is the big focus right now. What does phase 12 look like if there is such a thing? And that's kind of a concerning point as well. And a 100-foot buffer, I've got drop cords that are 100 feet. That's not that far. And a buffer of trees for 6 or 7 months of the year is really not going to knock down knock down much noise at all from some HVAC units, 50-ton units kicking on 3, 4, 5 times every hour or so, because these big buildings, just for efficiency's sake, they do zone cooling on them. So this one may kick on now, that one kicks on a little bit later. They both may kick on at the same time, and those things will make a lot of noise. And I don't know if, has anyone heard a generator for a facility of that size actually be exercised?
We visited the facility. So the answer, short answer is yes.
Yeah, because I've seen some of these engines. They are 12-cylinder engines, pistons that big, and they will rattle the ground when they crank up for a long way. But that's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Mr. Lovell.
Yes, sir.
Maybe it's for Mr. Menino, but let's just say this were to be an industrial property. What is the standard buffer that would be required?
50
for
feet.
this?
In the city,
It'd be 50 feet?
50 feet from a residential.
Adjacent to residential in the city, it's 50 feet.
Okay. And then my guess would be that, let's just, here on the southernmost part of the campus, I don't know the likelihood of it, but again, we're trying to paint scenarios. If they were to do that, they would have to come before council again for this?
No.
No, okay.
And to go back to your first question, the Business Park Overlay District, Cass White Industrial Park, or Highland 75, that does have a from 50 to 200 feet, depending on whether you're adjacent to a residential use or not.
Okay.
But the standard in the city is 50 feet.
Thank you. Okay. Appreciate that. Any other folks wishing to step forward and speak on the topic? The hearing for Z 23-03 may do so at this time. And that being the case, I'll call on the applicant to make any final comment or rebuttal. Well, actually, I do have a question for you as it relates to buffer. And again, you may have to call on one of the resources that you have here. Again, Mr. Blaylock was kind enough to show some of the topography or his renderings of what that topography would be. Has there been any work done there to see what a required buffer would be that it might be able to be larger, smaller than, or larger than what is currently allowed in the text amendment?
Mr. Luchins, have you done enough analysis yet to be able to answer that?
Yeah, that, Paul Luchins, 114 Old Mill Road. Answer that area is, like I said, it's one of the last areas we'll get to in this, and not to mention, it's kind of a two-part answer. The technology is changing, meaning that these buildings are getting smaller. They're becoming more efficient. Obviously, there's a noise in place, but the noise is even getting less for these buildings because of the technology. So by the time we get to that area, we don't even know the size of the building, but we know that it'll probably be smaller. The one that was displayed earlier, this is the Douglas campus. That facility is just being completed, but it's no longer in use. It's already obsolete. So they're already building them smaller and more concise due to the technology. So to answer your question, Mayor, there's not been enough studies there done on that end of the campus, but we do know utilize the topography and the existing terrain to hide these. So just like we're trying to hide the structures now from the residents, we're going to do the same thing.
Okay.
And just to be clear, the rules that we have proposed that apply to all the Cartersville and Bartow County residents are the same rules that apply to the Paulding County folks. The same noise ordinance, the same dark sky, the same buffers. So they're getting the same protection.
Any other questions for Mr. Bowen?
No, I think I already expressed about just, I know that they want to be a security, and I think that good boundaries make good neighbors, and we want to be good neighbors, and I think that poses for Switch, and I think that that's what they want to be. I think that they've made great strides in our community to do some things that we've not seen, and I think they want to be a great part of this community and be great neighbors. So I would just keep that in mind. Just, it's not about, my father used to say good fences make good neighbors, but that's really not the idea. It's not the fence, not how high it is, right? Or how deep it is. It's about the boundaries. It's about boundaries that make good neighbors, and we know where those are at and make that separation. So just keep that in mind, I think, when they move forward. And I know that this is much further down the road, than it is we move forward. Just, but I don't see the necessity right now, though, to change that to 250 feet or to 300 feet or 400 feet. I just think that Switch can do that.
Anything Mr. Bowen can answer for you?
No, I guess I would just make a statement.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for enduring.
And now I will close the public hearing for Z23-03 and turn it over to council for further discussion. Any questions you may have, any additional conditions, is it to be just for data center and data center use, I guess adjacent type of things. So any motion, again, we could add to this if you like, but any motion would have to include that as amended portion.
I'll make a motion to approve as amended for the new condition.
Second.
All right, got a motion, a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And motion carries unanimously. On to the next item. Actually, before we do that, everybody's certainly welcome to stay and watch the rest of this meeting, or or you're welcome to go on and enjoy your evening. I'll give you a couple minutes, and if you would, we'll take just a couple minutes before we move on. All right, Mr. Hampton, be like a salmon and swim upstream, and let's get this next item going.
Set me up. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I want to give them all a head start before you had to get up and start walking against them.
Fill the aisles up with people. Say, come up. I'm here for requesting authorization for the city to enter into distributed generation agreement for 49 Westover Lane. This is our standard agreement for when a resident or other customer has installed a solar generator location. It covers the standards that we have for those systems to interconnect with our system.
Comments or motions?
Motion to approve.
I've got a motion over here. You're going to second that, Mr. Fox? Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Morgan, you've got the next item, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to revise the fee amendment agreement with our custodian, Salem Trust. We're asking your permission to do that as we transfer funds to GMAPS. We'll keep some liquid assets with Salem Trust.
Okay. Any discussion? If there's none, a motion's in order.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries unanimously. While Mr. Roberts is making his way up, Chair will entertain a motion to add 2 items to the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
2 items added.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I am seeking to furnish the design and civil documents for the stadium steps and the retaining wall at Matthew Hill Park. This will give us our the design phase so that we can bid out the construction phase. But we did open these on October 18th, and they were the only proposal, and it's for $133,125. The scope will consist of survey, schematic design, civil engineering, design development, and construction administration during the final project. And we do seek approval.
Thank you. Any comments for Steve on this?
I'd just like to say, I know Councilman McCooley's been involved in this process. It's taken a little while to get here, but obviously bringing in an outside firm to help us design this, we kind of lay the groundwork and meet what Councilman McCooley in the neighborhood there would like to see going forward.
Well, and the other thing, again, it doesn't get brought up as part of this, but I'm assuming part of this is the structural integrity, because it's close enough to where that drop-off is that there's going to be some shoring up of that whole side of the world.
And also that retaining wall that,
Yep.
that is part of the road. So,
Yep,
yes.
absolutely. So that being said, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion
you.
carries unanimously. Thank you, Steve. Dan, you got the next one, sir.
Yes, sir. The opioid litigation representation. Andy Davis has switched law firms, and I recommend continuing using his firm, new firm, as we go forward in that opioid settlement. We actually just got some more money yesterday evening, so we're getting a bit of money out of that settlement, so I recommend approval to move forward.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Dixon, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The gas system is requesting the purchase of 2 Census 8-inch T90 turbine meters for the SK America project. The sole source provider, Equipment Controls Company, provided a quote of $31,601.50 for the meters. These are budgeted items, and council's approval is recommended.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, a motion's in order.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries
Thank you.
unanimously. Chief, you got the next 2, sir.
Good evening. This is a request to purchase 3 vehicles, police vehicles, 2 2023 Chevrolet Tahoe police packages, 1 Dodge Ram SSV 4-wheel drive truck. The Tahoes will cost $96,380, and the Dodge Ram is $42,990. I want to add $21,000 for equipment on the vehicle for a total of $168,220. It's a budgeted item paid for out of the general fund.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief on this item? If not, a motion's in order.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
The next one I got is we lease flock LPRs. The annual fee is due, and it's $15,000. Not to exceed $15,000, because I don't think we owe $15,000, but I hadn't settled with them yet. It'll be paid for with federal asset forfeiture funds.
We should have talked about this in the work session, but I think it's important, these license plate readers that you use I mean, talk about the impact that it has in the job that our officers are doing every single day.
We solve more crimes using the LPRs, anything from a shoplifting to a murder. So it's huge to have these things. And basically, we share our information with any police department in the United States, and we get their information. So for instance, we have some, and they can query for that car anywhere in the U.S. So it solves so many cases for us. It's very important.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chief?
I've seen these and I've been wondering what they were. Now I know.
It's truly amazing, and basically, practically every police department in the country now has them, and we've had them for a long while, so.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Sir. Mr. Bagley. A rare appearance behind the microphone, no pressure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is a request for the 2024 city calendar print and mailing services. We'd like to move forward with a new dimension graphic design and printing. The total cost for this is $15,769.91, which again includes both the printing and mailing preparation services. The design is created in-house using.
Or is the deadline for that passed?
The deadline has passed.
But there's
Yes,
always
sir.
next year.
That is a fact. Yes, sir.
All right, thanks. Any questions for Logan on this? If not, saying aye?
Aye.
Then motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item is Mayor's Matthews Garage Vehicle Repair. Travelers estimated at cost where our vehicle had a deer run out in front of them at $11,478, and I recommend approval. We'll end up paying a $1,000 deductible, but after we get reimbursed, but I recommend approval to pay Matthews Garage for their vehicle repair.
Did we cite the deer for? I guess
No,
not.
actually, we're gonna hear the story is that somebody came out there, stopped the gun, shot the deer, took it away before the state patrol came out there.
Okay, well, hopefully they, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. And motion carries unanimously. We had those two added items. Mr. Lovell, if you'll navigate us through those.
Yes, Mayor. The first one is a resolution authorizing the city of Cartersville to opt out of the nationwide class settlement related to PFAS, which is held in the U.S. District Court in Charleston, South Carolina. We have a right to participate in this, as everybody across the country does, every city and county does. We are recommending that you opt out of this, particularly of the city, to participate in this due to some of the limitations that we've heard they are considering to impose on the participants.
Okay, thank you. So Chair will entertain a motion on this item.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And carries unanimously. The second item, I believe, is part of this.
Yes. The next item is to hire the law firm of Davis, Lucas and Carter and Dazio and Zelenas in Alabama, and Davis, Lucas and Carter is in Rome, to represent us, as they are representing several other cities in Georgia and Alabama, to file, to study the ability of the city of Cartersville to lawsuits for PFAS in the water system. It is recommended by our office for your approval, and we've had good success using these firms in the past.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or questions of Mr. Lovell on this item? If there's not, a motion is in order.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Is there any other business that needs to come before council this evening? Wait, see how long we can have uncomfortable silence. If there are none, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion so moved.
Stay gold.
Before 8, I'm impressed.
What do we do?